Well, it's the weekend. It's the most funnest time ever. However, here in DWZ, we're going to make things a little more interesting. We're going to be reviewing one of Stardom's much recent events before Midsummer Champions, right after the Sunshine event. That, of course, this is more like Outpost before the Midsummer Champions. And, of course, we go on to AEW Collision, where we have the two semi-final matches in the Owen Hart Foundation Men's Tournament. Who will walk out to get to the finals? That's what we're going to see. And we have also an Eliminator matchup for the AEW Tag Team titles. Will the Bullet Club Gold be able to pick up a win, or they will forever never get the opportunity as long as FTR are still the tag champions? So we'll see what takes place throughout the entirety of AEW Collision. And of course, we got a couple of news updates to tell what's been going on in the world of pro wrestling, such as what events are being promoted by the promotions, who's booked, what matches are set, the whole enchilada. So let's get ready for another episode of the Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to the Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, if you are new to the channel, please subscribe and click like. Tell all your friends about this channel where we review a lot of pro wrestling from different promotions and all that. But right now, let's get started with our very first one. Our first promotion we're going to be reviewing is Stardom. This is from their July 1st event in Tokorozawa. This is a day before the Midsummer Champion event, where of course the Wonder of Stardom title was on the line. So it's the high speed, the Indian strap match. But before that, let's get started with the beginning all the way to the end. Our first match, we have Saki Kashima taking on Tekla. Now, as you know, this is right after when Saki Kashima was expelled from excuse me. As I said, Saki Kashima was expelled from Oedo Tai after losing the elimination steel cage match against Queen's Quest. So she is basically went independent here. However, her opponent is the Toxic Spider Tekla. But this match ended with, of course, Tekla applying the Dokugumu Death Drop on her. However, in the post-match, she declared that she's going to be, after, of course, Saki has her match against Fukigen Death in Midsummer Champions for her title, the High Speed. However, Kashima declined to have a match with her, but of course Tekla did not take that kindly, so she beat the crap out of her, even though she's all alone with no one to protect her. Now, our next match, we have the return of Rebel X Enemy, Maika Ozaki and Ram Kaicho, taking on Queen's Quest, Miyu Amasaki and Lady C. Now, I'm sure that these ladies have Amasaki and Lady have dealt with Rebel X Enemy in the past, but however, nothing can stop these ladies being one of the most dominated tag teams in the independents. However, it was, of course, Ozaki with the torture rack bomb on Amasaki to pick up the win. Next up, we have Oedo Tai, or should I say BMI 2000, Ruka and Natsuko Tora taking on Star members Saya Ida and Azuki. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot of history with certain individuals in this type of match. As you know, Azuki used to be a member of Oedo Tai, and she remembered Natsuko Tora prior, before she retired and then came back. And of course, Ruka was once a member of Stars with Saya Ida. So there's a lot of things that will go right. But however, it was Natsuko Tora with the Swanton Bomb on Aida giving them the win. Now we have the other members of Oedo Tai. We have Rina, Fukigen Death, Starlight Kid, and Momo Watanabe taking on Queen's Quest, Hina, Sayakami Tani, Azumi, and Utami Hayashishida. Now keep in mind this feud is far from over. Natsuko Tora will not let this one go because they were determined to destroy Queen's Quest from the inside by trying to break Utami, but it didn't work at the Sunshine event. So basically that kind of played out. But in this case, it was of course the diving foot stomp by Azumi to Rina that ended the whole thing. But you can tell this feud between Queen's Quest and Oedo Tai, two of the oldest units within Stardom, this is far, far from over. Now our next match, we have DDM consisting of Maika, Mai Sakurai, and Julia taking on Club Venus's Mariah May, Waka Tsukiyama, and Mina Shirakawa. So basically, you know how this is going to be. Now, the one thing, there is the X factor on this particular match. Both sides have championship titles that either way can go. Keep in mind, Mariah May and Mina Shirakawa are the goddesses of Stardom Tag Team Champions. And of course, you got Julia and Mai Sakurai, the current artist champions. So basically, anything could happen in between those. But however, that didn't go exactly like that. It was, of course, Maika who applied the Enka Otoshi on Waka, giving them the win. And as always, once DDM wins, or if they lose, Sakura Mai continues with her little shenanigans about telling everybody to eat grass, which is not good. But sooner or later, someone's going to shut her up. And I don't know who that would be, but it's going to happen. My money's going to be on Zuzu, who thinks she's crazy. But until that day comes, we'll just wait. Now our next match, we have Mei Sita, Suzuki, and Sayuri Onoi taking on Aya Sakura and the members of Stars, Hanan and Mayu Iwatani. So, of course, the X factor of this particular match, you probably can guess that that in any other in any other way, that Aya Sakura is the one who could most likely take the fall. That's always been the case. The only person that was not present in this particular show was Koguma. I don't know what it was, because I know Ida and Azuki were in a tag match, but now that, and Momo, who was, I don't know, she was absent as well, but I don't know what was the reasons. But that played out pretty well as well. But however, it was of course Zuzu with the tequila shot onto who was it, on Sakura, to pick up the win. So that played out pretty well. Now our next match, we have our main event, Hanako teaming up with God's Eye, more consistently with Ami Sori and Mirai. Not present Suri. They take on Yuna Mizumori and Natsupoi and Tam Nakano of the Cosmic Angels. Now keep in mind, this is more of an Outpost preview show. As you know, Tam Nakano defends the white belt prior against Mirai. Now you probably can tell there's a lot of animosity between both sides. Now Mirai has issues towards Tam. As you know, Mirai always says that she put everything in her soul, but Tam doesn't believe that sort of things. This is the same thing I mentioned, that maybe Julia doesn't like hearing this kind of crap. She thinks that's a lot of horse shit, as you guys would probably believe. But that's always been the case. But it did not. But however, it was of course Hanako who picked up the fall when Tam Nakano applied the Northern Light Cross on her, forcing her out. The referee called it, and just like that. So until then, we had that, and of course we all know what happened at Midsummer Champions. Mirai was able to defeat Tam Nakano and win the white belt, which is something that many fans were expecting. So I don't need to explain more of that, but as we speak, there is another show that is taking place in Korakuen Hall, but we'll see what happens until then. I believe it's time to move on with AEW Collision. Okay, AEW Collision. So, as you know, I mentioned we continue more with the Owen Hart Foundation men's tournament in the semifinals, and of course, we have plenty other things that are taking place. As you know, they can still continue on with the Canadian tour. So let's get started. Now, it started out with CM Punk coming out doing a promo, talking about how they're in Hart family country, which is good because they're honoring Owen Hart and his legacy the way it should be. Well, we all know the history, what's going on. I don't need to repeat myself on that. But let's get started. Our first match, part of the Owen Hart Foundation men's tournament in the semifinals, is Powerhouse Hobbs versus Ricky Starks. Now, keep in mind, these two gentlemen are no strangers with each other. They were once members of Team Taz until Hobbs turned his back on Ricky Starks and went on his own. And of course, Ricky Starks got his little payback. But however, the only difference in this particular story is, of course, Hobbs has QT Marshall by his side, who will do anything to ensure he gets what he wants. But of course, the entirety of the match, you have interference coming from QT, Aaron Solo, and of course, Harley Cameron is there as well. But however, Aubrey Edwards, who's the official referee of the match, not sure what she saw with QT. Apparently, it was more like she wasn't too sure exactly what she saw. But because of what the distraction, it cost Powerhouse Hobbs the match. But he got speared by Ricky Starks that led to that, allowing him to go to the finals. But however, because of this mess that QT got himself involved, he has no clue what to do. Aaron Solo tried to intervene, but he got wasted until Harley Cameron pleaded with Hobbs not to do anything. So basically, QT should be considered lucky that Harley Cameron was there to help him out. So we'll see how that turns out. Now, during the interview, as you know, Willow Nightingale, lost the New Japan Strong Women's Championship. However, she might have injured herself. Originally, she was supposed to be in a match against Athena. That match has been postponed, and later was told it's going to happen on Rampage. Basically, she seems she'll be medically cleared by then. However, Athena reminded Willow Nightingale, saying that she has been her before. However, if she wins the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, then she will probably get another run of the ROH World Women's title, which is, of course, something that Athena is not going to lose or try to give up that easily. So we'll see how that goes. Our next match, we have Julia Hart taking on Bambi Hall, who is I believe a Canadian wrestler in that area. You probably can guess this was going to be a squash match until Julia applied the Heartless that gives the win. However, as soon as the match and the continuation of the story with the House of Black continues, as you know, Malachi Black took Andrade El Idolo's mask, like that he wore when he comes out before then. Malachi is accusing him that he is hiding his face. However, Andrade, during an interview, tells him that he takes his mask off. But what he is then is trying to disrespect the culture. So he will do whatever it takes to his mask back. So we'll see where they're going to go with this one. Now, our next match is for the AEW World Tag Team Titles Eliminator matchup. We have FTR versus the Bullet Club Gold. I have to say, what a match. It was an instant slobber knocker in this particular match in every way possible. Now, you know how thirsty and hungry Bullet Club Gold are determined to make themselves an AEW since their formation. But FTR, who's been considered the best tag team in the world, since we know they had a hell of a year in 2022, and of course, starting now. But the obvious question is, can they pull off a miracle? However, that wasn't the case. There was a lot of motions, a lot of stoppage. I was impressed by this match, but however, Juice Robinson applied a DDT on hardwood. Wheeler tried to catch up, but at the last second, Jay White was able to stop him, and then of course the referee applied 1, 2, 3. It's done. But during the interview with Tony Schiavone, Jay White saying that Tony that he's making the wrong interview. I mean, look, isn't about the wrong interview. I mean, FTR did a hell of a match, even though it did not go in their way. But however, they made the announcement that they will have this tag match next week. Um, so it's going to be interesting how that's going to go. Now, our next match, we have the return of Scorpio Sky, who we haven't seen since he lost the TNT title to Wardlow. He faces against a guy who has already made a big impact in AEW. We're talking about Action Andretti, who's been also very impressive in Ring of Honor recently as well. However, he faces a guy like Scorpio Sky. Now, keep in mind, Action Andretti is no fool. He has pulled off the impossible. Look what he did with Chris Jericho. That's always been one of the things we have seen. But with Scorpio Sky, that's a different story. But Sky, who is now back, he applied the TKO on Andretti, picking up the win. 1, 2, 3. Just like that, it is done. Now, our main event is, of course, the other semifinal of the Owen Hart Foundation men's tournament. We have Samoa Joe versus CM Punk in part 4. Now, these two men have faced each other starting in 2003 in Ring of Honor. It was a very long history. CM Punk has not beaten Samoa Joe whatsoever, but Joe believes in his confident wisdom that the results will be the same. But the obvious question is, who wants it more? So that sets it all. But out of nowhere, Punk was unable to apply the GTAs until he applied the victory roll on Samoa Joe and picked up the win. However, of course, CM Punk tried to shake his hands, but Joe was not having it. And of course, he attacked him, and FTR showed up for the helping hand. But however, CM Punk now realized that he has one person he has to contend in the finals, and that is, of course, Ricky Stark, a guy who he has teamed up in the past. So right now, if I'm CM Punk, you should be more, not worried, but more focused on Ricky Starks. And I'm sure Ricky Starks would do the same thing too. So we'll see when that happens. So we're going to be watching that very, very closely. So I think that's pretty much it with AEW Collision. I believe it's time for news updates. Alright, so welcome to our news update. So we only have 4 that we're going to be talking about. As you know, it was announced by on Twitter by GCW that Effy's Big Gay Brunch 7 in Chicago on the 2nd of September. They announced for Pero to make his appearance. Now keep in mind, Pero, who has a big outstanding feud with none other than what's his name, Effy. You know there's going to be some trouble coming around, so we'll be paying attention to that. Deadlock Pro Wrestling has announced for their new show they have announced called The Beast Coast. Will take place on the 13th of August in Durham, North Carolina. So there's no yet who's going to participate. I will keep you guys apprised to that if you're big fans of Deadlock Pro Wrestling. Mission Pro Wrestling, which is Thunder Rosa's promotion, has announced for the Bowling Point event that will take place on August 12th. Izzy Moreno, who we know her as a fangirl, will be making her debut, taking on against the Atir Jasmine Allure. Now, this is not the first time they have met. Jasmine Allure went off the rails against Izzy Moreno when she tried to help her. So this is going to be a very interesting match for her. So hopefully she does pretty well on her debut match. And finally, updates for West Coast Pro for their upcoming 5th anniversary show, West Coast 5, on the 14th of October. It's announced that the man, the myth, the legend, Ultimo Dragon will be making his debut. So this is going to be fun. I'm a big fan of Ultimo Dragon. I mean, I remember watching him when he was making appearances in CMLL a long time ago. So I'm very happy that he's going to participate. So I can't wait to see who is he going to face or what's he going to do. I'm excited for it. I think that's pretty much it with our news updates, I believe. Yep, I think that's pretty much it. So I believe it's time to call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode coming up. As you know, since this is the weekend, on Saturday there is of course some shows that I will not be able to do until the following day. We have of course the latest wrestling revolver show, which is of course their first ever show to be debuted in the state of Texas, which is called Texas Toasted, which I'm excited. And of course we have MLW Now and or Fight, whatever it's called, where of course all titles are on the line, I believe. And of course we have the latest GCW event, Clean Up Now, where we witnessed the debut of Stardom's very own Utami Ishida. So I will be doing those. I'll make those as a top priority for the next episode. However, coming up next after this, you guys will get more on Unagi Sayaka. This is a very big review where we will be talking about her recent matches. I believe there's about 6 matches we'll be talking about. So get ready for that. But as of for now, I will see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. And have a nice day. Bang.